Hello everyone, today is 10th of April. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So, today we'll take a quote from Potter Stewart, who was the former justice at the US Supreme Court. He says, censorship reflects a society's lack of confidence in itself. Now, guys, the censorship has been a tool to silence the criticisms, to silence the ideas which are going antithetical to the mainstream ideas, and thus, in a way, censorship often reflects a kind of a weak attitude. So, guys, therefore, rather than censor, we should be open to embrace the ideas as it might bring a kind of an enrichment in our own ideologies. So, guys, that is all about the today's GS folder. You can utilize this quote in answers related to GS paper number 2, GS paper number 4, as well as into the essays. So, guys, that is all. And now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now, taking up the first article, this article has been taken from the Indian Express as well as from the Hindu newspaper. And guys, it is a kind of a recent irritant that has emerged between the India and USA. Now, guys, recently USS John Paul Jones, which is a guided missile destroyer and a massive ship, has asserted a navigational rights and freedoms into the EEZ, that is the exclusive economic zone of India. Moreover, the navigation has just been made 130 nautical miles west of the Lakshadweep island, which is very much into the vicinity of the mainland India also. Now, guys, India call this as FONOP, which means the Freedom of Navigation Operations, and US Navy says that it has claimed such kind of a right over 40 years, and it is exclusive territory of the USA, and they had done nothing wrong. Now, guys, the FONOP is not new. Earlier, also, it has been done even into the Indian waters also. But for the first time, this thing is happening that the announcement of the FONOP has been made explicitly by the USA, and it is just being seen as an attempt to censure the India. Now, guys, into this particular response, India had said that the nod should have taken from the India if such kind of exercise was being carried into the EEZ of India. Now, guys, according to the India, we have signed the UN clause, that is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas. And under the UN clause, it has been provided that we will allow the passage of the transit ships, transit vehicles, if they are for peaceful purpose, even within our EEZ. They don't need to take an explicit permission. However, the convention does not authorize other states to carry out in the EEZ or onto the continental shelf any military exercise or maneuvers, or particularly ones which involve the use of weapon or explosive without the consent of the coastal state. And here the coastal state is India. So the permission or the nod would have to be taken up, but USA had not taken up, calling it as a navigational right and the freedom. Now, guys, this particular thing would have made sense if it would have been done into the South China Sea, because there the signal would have been to deter the China in about its design into the South China Sea. But why in India such kind of things are being done? And this becomes even important because, guys, recently the Quad summit was held, and into the Quad summit it was explicitly declared by the member countries that the rule based order into the Indo-Pacific will be maintained, and into that particular line such kind of attempts does not send a positive signal. Moreover, it has also been said that highlighting the FONOP is more sorry state of affairs than actual conducting of the FONOP. But the USA is not finding anything wrong. According to the USA, for so many years they are conducting this particular exercise, and this time they have not done anything again, anything wrong or anything different. Moreover, guys, here when we talk about this particular ship, that is the USS John Paul Jones, it also had a symbolism. See, it belongs to the 7th Fleet of the US Navy, and the 7th Fleet is the largest of the deployed fleet. Moreover, guys, it at any time contains 50 to 70 ships, submarines, 150 aircrafts, more than 20,000 sailors. And guys, even in 1971, when the war was going with the Pakistan, at that point of time also the 7th Fleet was docked near to the India, so that if there is a kind of a confrontation, then it can be called at assistance. So, guys, that is all about this particular article. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Guys, this article has been taken from the Indian Express newspaper, and it talks about the virtual summit that has been held between the India and Netherlands, and it can be important for our GS paper number 2, bilateral relations. Now, guys, what has happened? The Prime Minister Modi and his Dutch counterpart, Prime Minister Mark Rutte, had held a virtual summit, and into this summit, they had agreed to start a strategic partnership onto the water sector so that free and inclusive Indo-Pacific region can be ensured. Moreover, guys, after that, it has also been shared that onto the vaccine development, both the countries will cooperate with each other and will share the successful case studies so that further efficacy into the vaccine can be deployed. Then, guys, thirdly, onto the terrorism also, the talks have been there, and both the countries had agreed that the terrorism and extremism is the greatest threat that the humanity is facing. Moreover, at the same time, India had also shown a positive hope that the Netherlands will be supporting into the India-EU trade agreement on which the talks are going to be held again. And into this particular capacity, a support has been expected out of the Netherlands. Now, guys, when we talk about the India-Netherlands relations, the relations, diplomatic relations started in 1947, and till today, the relations are going good, and there have been high-profile state visits also between both the countries since 2015. Now, guys, when we talk about this strategic partnership onto the water sector, it becomes important because, guys, now the Netherlands has become the third country into the Europe after the France and Germany, which had come up with their Indo-Pacific policy. It shows that Netherlands is showing a particular interest into the Indo-Pacific. So, for into line of their foreign policies stated motto, this partnership has been signed. So, that is all about this particular article. I hope that you have understood. Now, we'll move to the next article. Now, friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the recently concluded foreign ministers meet between the Russia and the India. Now, guys, recently we have seen earlier also that Russian foreign minister made a visit to India. Actually, it was a preparation for the Putin's visit, which is due. Now, guys, the Putin's visit was expected last year, but because of the pandemic of COVID-19, it got postponed, and now it is going to be held. Now, guys, as this particular meet happened, there are some positive things that came out. For example, both sides make a progress onto the strategic cooperation. The things were talked here onto the energy sector. Many of the important aspects were discussed onto the nuclear and space sectors, as well as onto the free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union. Many of the discussions were made. Moreover, at the same time, the agreements onto the military and technical cooperation were also signed between the India and Russia. Now, guys, India is giving the technology so that India can manufacture the India-made Russian weapons. And at the same time, Russia also highlighted this particular thing that Russia is only significant partner which is supplying the cutting edge military technology to the India, and it shows that how much warmness between the two countries have been there. However, guys, during this particular meet, there was no discussion onto the S-400 Triumph missile defense system, and the reason is very much clear. The USA is not liking this particular deal between the India and Russia, and many times indirect references have also been given that if this particular deal materialized, India might be imposed under the sanctions under the CAATSA Act, that is the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. So therefore, it was not discussed. Now, guys, after that, there are some other good references also between the two countries. First is the International North-South Transport Corridor, which is a kind of a multimodal project that is being taken. It will start from Mumbai and will be ending into the Russia, and all these countries will be integrated in between. It aims to bypass the existing standard route, which is lengthy and which takes much of that time. Then, guys, there is also other project that is being worked upon, that is the Chennai Vladivostok Eastern Maritime Corridor. Now it will start from the Chennai and will be ending into Vladivostok, Russia, and it will also reduce the distance to nearly 5600 nautical miles. Now the present route is it is from Port of Mumbai to the St. Petersburg, and it is more than 8,600 nautical miles. So, guys, these two connectivity projects also shows that there is a robust future that is lying between both the countries. However, at the same time, it was also seen that there were certain events which marked the coldness also between both the countries. For example, the S. Jaishankar, the Minister of External Affairs, mentioned the rebalanced nature of the international relation, which was a clear reference that the Russia's hegemony or Russia's dominance is now going down. Moreover, there was the different expressions that were used. For example, India was focusing onto the Indo-Pacific region, which is becoming a strategic arena into the times to come, whereas the foreign minister of the Russia referred more to the Asia Pacific region. Now, guys, deliberately, the Indo-Pacific was not being talked by the Russia, because into the Indo-Pacific, an element of the USA is also there. Moreover, we also know that India had become very much proactive into the Quad, and the Russia calls Quad as the Asian NATO, and has many a times called about the disutility of such kind of a platform, and has said that it will basically be bringing more kind of problems into the region. Then, guys, there are other irritant also. For example, the approach with respect to Afghanistan. We had seen recently that the Russia wants to bring the peace, and into that it has also brought the Taliban into the power sharing, but India is more towards the democratic Afghanistan and doesn't believes in bringing the Taliban or negotiating with the Taliban. Then, guys, there were other cold moments also. For example, the foreign minister of Russia did not had a meet with the prime minister of India. Now, it is not clearly known whether who avoided this particular meet. However, on to the very next day, the prime minister met with the John Kerry, who was the special envoy from the USA. And then, guys, finally, the stop was made by the Russian foreign minister into the Pakistan, where the transfer of the defense arsenal was also discussed. So these are some of the key takeaways from the recent India-Russia foreign ministers meet. Friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the refugee and the immigrants policy of India. Now, see, when we talk about the India, its geographical location is such that it has always been prone to the exodus of the immigrants. Now, earlier there was the Bangladeshi immigrants that came into the India. Now, guys, the Myanmari immigrants are there because of the coup that has happened into the Myanmar. Even earlier, there were the Rohingyas whose exodus has been there into the India. Now, guys, whenever the immigrants are coming to any country, they have always been linked to a threat. There is a threat onto the social and political front, that when they will be coming, if their population will increase, it will undermine the native culture, the native social demographics, etc. However, at the other hand, there are also the security implications, because, guys, these people are always living into the vulnerable conditions, and they can often become prone to the extremist ideologies. So therefore, the immigrants have been avoided by many of the countries. Now, guys, when we talk about the refugees and the international immigrants, for them there are two of the international conventions. Number one is the 1951 United Nations Conventions onto the refugees, and other is the 1967 protocol to this UN Convention of 1951. Now, world over, the countries' commitment for the immigrants, for the refugees, are guided by these two convention and protocol. However, India has neither signed this 1951 United Nations Refugee Convention nor its 1967 Refugee Convention. India says that it is a sovereign matter, and India case by case will be dealing that when the refugees are to be, what type of treatment is to be given to the refugees, and when the immigrants are to be admitted or not to be admitted. Now, guys, frankly, India is taking all this particular matter under the Foreigners Act of 1946. Now, keeping this particular matter open-ended had many of the reasons. Number one is that India wants to retain their sovereignty into the international arena. Number two, India wants to see that what is the political utility of which type of refugees, and they want to take action onto that particular thing. Now, see, guys, as India had not signed this particular protocol, there are some kind of ambiguities also. See, I want to discuss one concept here. See, number one, there are the illegal immigrants. Number two, there are the asylum seekers. And number three, there are the refugees. See, illegal immigrant is one person who had entered into another country without the valid documentation. Then the asylum seeker are one who had feared that they will be politically, there will be their persecution onto their political opinion or onto their ethnic differences, and therefore they had requested another country that please allow us to live into your country. So they are the asylum seekers, they had made a request. And finally, they are there are the refugees. See, when the asylum seeker's request will be accepted, and he will be given a kind of a permission to stay into another country, and a limited number of rights will be given, he will become actually the refugee. So, guys, these are the three different keywords, and they have been very much clarified into the context of entire European Union. But in India, as we are not having any separate refugee policy, nor we had abided to this 1951 UN Convention as well as 1967 67 protocol, such clear-cut differences are not there, and often an ad hocism is there, and often illegal immigrants and refugees are seen into the same light. Now guys, coming back into our article, see, when we talk about India not having a proper policy onto the refugee, it is also the reason that many times the refugee issues are also linked with the strategic issues, and therefore we don't want to have a one size fit all policy. See, right now there is an exodus of the people of Myanmar into the India, and India is not giving the asylum to them. The reason is that if India will give them asylum, then it will frustrate the military generals into the Myanmar, and as they have a very closeness with the China, then a nexus can be made between the China and Myanmar, and they can impact the Indian interest into the Myanmar. So therefore, right now, actually not having a very clear-cut policy and keeping it onto the matters of discretion is helping India. Moreover, guys, though India is not having any kind of clear-cut policy, but India's record in giving the refuge to the people have been stellar. And India is actually the largest recipient of refugees into the world. Now, guys, let's discuss that why India has not agreed to these 1951 policy and their 67 protocol. Number one, India says that the agreed definition of the people who can apply for the refugee status, if there has been violation of their civil or political rights, and if there actually economic rights violation has not been agreed. Now the economic rights violation is that if they are not having the dignified livelihood, they cannot apply for the refugee status. Now guys, giving just two grounds, that is a civil and political violation, it had suited the Western countries, because if economic rights violation would have also been agreed, large number of exodus of migrants would have been there. Now India wants that why only two grounds, the economic ground also needs to be there. And then the second issue comes is that though these two grounds have been agreed, but guys, in another way also, the Western countries are not allowing the people to come into their country. For example, there are the new visa restrictions that are being imposed, career restrictions there are there, then the third safe country rule restrictive interpretations are there, and by that they are actually deterring so many of the people. So actually the Western world, which have agreed to 1951, they are not keeping it alive into the letter and spirit. So India wants that first they should endorse it completely, and then only the India will be joining. However, guys, even after the India is having grounds, still there is a case that India needs to convene a designated refugee policy, and humanitarian concerns are needed to be supreme into that policy. Moreover, guys, the laws such as the Citizenship Amendment Act, where the discrimination onto the ground of the ethnicities was there, they are not appreciated. So guys, that is all the message that has been given into this particular article. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and here we can see that the Supreme Court has declared that the live streaming of the court proceedings are going to be held soon. Now, guys, from very long this demand was there. It was said that the Supreme Court proceedings are needed to be made available to all the people, so that everybody can see that the justice into the fair manner is being conducted. Now, guys, as the pandemic came, at that point of time, the virtual hearings into the Supreme Court started, and there the possibility of conducting the live streaming of all the court proceedings also got materialized. And now it has also been made very much clear that these virtual systems or these live streamings are not a way to replace the physical court hearings. They will also be continued there. So guys, this is all which has been carried here, one of also good judicial reform that is being conducted. So guys, that is all about this particular article, and that is all about today's newspaper analysis. I hope that you are understanding it and it is proving fruitful to you. Thank you so much.